Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know that I feel good. Doing things I never thought I could.
Hello, Homes for Heroes affiliates. Welcome, welcome. We had some technical difficulties, as usual. It's just kind of my MO. But we're good. And we are streaming to Facebook, and we've got everybody on here. I am so excited. This is such a crucial conversation for us to all have. And it's going to be a great one at that. You can see I've got two very special guests here with me. We're going to get to that in just a moment. This is meant to be a conversation, you guys. So please feel free to use the chat section if you've got questions that you'd like Mario or Jim to field themselves. But I am so grateful to have you guys with me for this particular conversation for sure. I wanted to kickstart this particular mastermind, if you will, a little bit differently than what we typically do to start our usual top affiliate masterminds, because it is such a crucial conversation for us all to be having. You know, we're facing something in the real estate industry that we've never faced before, at least not in my time in the industry. And we all know that our real estate industry is cyclical, and we've seen ups and downs and crashes and rebounds. But right now, it seems as though that we're just in like this perfect storm, if you will. There are a bunch of challenges at hand that are comprising the storm, right? Higher interest rates than we've grown accustomed to these last few years, increasing inflation, the Fed's not seeming to be able to get that under control, rising home prices, of course, the shortage and the inventory, all being major contributors to the huge challenge of helping our clients find affordable housing for them. And all of these things combined have led to transactions being down year over year. The number of existing home sales has dropped from 6 million in 2021 to 5 million in 2022 to last year being about 4 million. And then you couple that with the fact that our industry's grown in size by 600,000 agents in the last decade, topping out at 1.6 million realtors last year, all competing to share what is now a much smaller piece of the pie comprised of home sales. Plus, couple that all with the big elephant in the room, which is the NAR settlement proposal, right? It has the potential to be one of the biggest changes in our industry that we've seen in a really long time. How it will ultimately shake out and the full impact it'll have is yet to be seen and fully realized for sure. But we will be talking about that today. So we wanted to bring you all together to have a really great conversation about this. Currently, from everything I'm hearing from our affiliates, everything that I'm reading through in our industry as a whole, people are kind of split on the proposed NAR settlement, half reacting out of fear, and the other half really wanting to see the opportunity and be a part of the solution, taking the emotions out of it that we all have and basing it on my experience, our collective experience, and the data. I'll liken this to what happened in 2007, 2008 with that financial bubble, which impacted home sale numbers in a very similar way. That leads us to, we can certainly expect that this new proposed change will have a dramatic impact on the number of agents that we see in our industry declining significantly too. Our lending professionals, let's be honest, they saw this and experienced this very thing last year and the dramatic decline in their profession too. So I'm not trying to paint a stark picture, as I don't believe this is a catastrophe or a huge problem or anything like that. I really see this as an opportunity to improve our profession. And I know as a Homes for Heroes specialist, you're already primed to weather this storm by your affiliation with us, which gives you a unique advantage over your fellow agents and lenders. So real quickly, before I pop over with Jim and Mario, I wanted to share a great analogy that Ruth, our CEO and founder, shared with all of us and our team recently. Being the Midwestern girl that I am through and through, I love it. So I hope you like it as well. It's about two different animals. It's about, some of you may have heard this, a cow and a bison and how they weather and go through a storm. You see, when a storm's approaching, cows will typically start to panic and they end up running away from it, or at least trying to. They may try to find shelter. They might just try and simply outrun the storm. But this strategy doesn't work. Storms are powerful and can last for hours or even days. So cows inevitably not only have to confront the storm, but they receive the brunt of a storm for a much longer period of time. It's not what the bison does. Rather than waiting out the storm or running away from it, the bison charges into the storm, taking it head on and running right through it. This has the effect of reducing the amount of exposure to the storm. So, why I share that with you, the moral of that story is not to panic, but to see the storm ahead and face it head on to get through it the fastest and in the long run, the easiest, even though it may be daunting and difficult in the moment. And taking these obstacles on directly, we learn what the bison knows instinctually. When we address our challenges directly, the perceived obstacles are often much less than we imagined. At the end of the day, easy leads to long-term difficult, while short-term difficult leads to long-term easy. At Homes for Heroes, our mission is and always has been to thank every hero. And I assure you, we will go on to do just that. It might just look a little different in how we do it together. And heroes are still and will always be wanting to buy or sell. And we intend to be there to serve them through that process. We're your partner in this industry, which is why we wanted to open up a discussion and address your questions and concerns together. Addressing it head on is critical to you, our affiliates, and the heroes we serve. And in these shifting and changing times in our industry, the ones who not only make it through the storm, but are in prime position to capitalize on the rich opportunity that lies on the other side of it are the ones who are committed to our industry, truly specialize in what they do, and own their value proposition. And I know without a question of a doubt, as a Homes for Heroes specialist, you're poised to be a bison if you face the storm head on with us. So I'm going to go ahead and stop talking now. I'm going to turn it over to these guys. We're going to have a great conversation about this. Again, use chat and everything if you've got additional questions beyond the ones that I'll be asking. So Jim, Mario, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome, welcome. How's the weather where you're at? Stormy there by chance?
Oh, it is bright and sunny down in Florida, about 85 degrees here today.
Love it.
A storm just rolled through and I ran out and ran right towards it. And I figured I didn't want to get wet, so I came back in. But it's sunny now, but there was a storm just a little bit ago.
I love it. It was stormy when I woke up this morning. I thought it was super fitting, especially for this mastermind that we were going to have for sure. So I know you guys quite well. A lot of our affiliates are accustomed to seeing your faces as well, but can we do quick intros of each of you just to get you introduced to our audience that we've got? Jim, I'm going to start with you.
My name's Jim McInnes. I am the husband of Kim McInnes, and I have four amazing children ranging from 13, almost 14 to 1. So crazy times, but I'm grateful to be here. I'm in Indiana. I'm a real estate affiliate in Indiana, northern Indiana, Notre Dame, Michigan kind of country.
Michigan, kind of. That's hysterical.
Yeah, well, I'm on the line. We have an office in Michigan too, so I have, yeah, that blue and gold can go to, blue and, what's the yellow is the Michigan colors pretty easily.
I love it. Jim is also our #1 real estate specialist team in the country. He has a ton of experience, leads agents in his offices as well. So he's going to be a wealth of information for what's going on in his market currently and what that looks like and how he's helping his agents adapt as well. Mario, how about you, my friend?
You got it. Mario Gonzalez. I'm a prior Navy vet, about 24 years, been with Homes for Heroes. I'm guessing 8-10 years somewhere, just a little bit shorter than Jim. So I'm a broker down here in Florida with Navy to Navy Homes. Also have some crazy property management stuff, so we do that as well. So I get to see things shift and all different sides. Again, just really thankful to be with Homes for Heroes for as long as we have been. And yeah, kind of like Jim, I'm a father, husband, got 3 crazy ones, and they just make me older. It was interesting as you were giving that analogy of the 2 animals. I was thinking about what my dog does in a storm. He just stands out back and just looks up at it. I don't know where that fits in on the spectrum from bison to cow, but it doesn't bid well.
I love it. Yes, Mario's our number 2 real estate specialist team in the country. These guys are both a part of our 1,000 Heroes Served Club. They do significant business. They are in this to win it, if you will, and are true specialists and are just a wealth of knowledge and information and how this plays out in our industry as well in real time. So I know you are both very fact-based, numbers-driven in our conversations that we've had in the past and how you approach your business and leading your teams. Give us, I'll just throw it out there to both of you. What's a quick synopsis of what your local market landscape looks like for you right now?
Mario, you want to go?
Sure, I'll start. Again, I watch numbers all the time. Let me start with this. We have almost 12,000 real estate agents in our local market here. And if I go back 7 years, there was only 1 year that the average agent sold more than 3 homes. And that was in 2021. And they sold 3.1. Every other year in the last 7 years, including last year, the average agent has sold less than 3 homes. That's crazy. If I look just at our last year, 2023, 31% of all of our agents, of 12,000 agents, 31% sold nothing, not one single home. So if we start talking about different things and perspectives, we'll get later to in the conversation, there may be some significant impacts to those folks that have sold 0 or maybe 1 or 2. But if I look at the other end of that spectrum, the people that have been doing business for a while and have the policies and the procedures and the relationships, you'll hear me talk about that, those folks continue to be kind of tried and true, the 20% doing 80% of the business. As far as the market snapshot, our average price per home continues to trickle up. Our inventory is actually trickling up. Our days on market are trickling down, but we're still only about 3 months of inventory. We like to have about 6 months, but that is an improvement from last year. That good enough of a snapshot?
Yeah, that's perfect. Jim, how about you in your area?
Well, I think we're pretty similar in that our from our association level to our state level, our membership is up and at record numbers as far as the actual members. Those that are producing, I would say, are still that top 20% is going to be the top 20% of those numbers. So we do see that our average sales price is also. I think it's like 3% down from last year. Our average days on the market's up. It's like 18 days now is like our average days on the market, and our inventory, we have a month and a half of inventory. So we definitely are seeing some challenges and some adjustments, but we're also seeing a lot of opportunities as well.
Love it. That's great. Great to hear. Thank you so much for that. You guys are in 2 very different markets, but I'm kind of hearing stuff that's similar all across the country too. So, Jim, I'm going to kick this to you. What are you doing given what's going on in your local market to help fortify your business through the storm that we find ourselves in right now, being a little bit more proactive and a part of the solution?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we always look at the controllable things. What can we control? And what we do is we try to make sure that we are focusing in on those controllable things. First off, just like how business comes. So like how agents actually get business, like that, like what initiates that. So reactionary measures that like I just get a lead or something like that. We have never really been like that. We've always try to control our actions. So we're very much client driven and past client driven. And that's how our agents, that's how we really focus on those things and our controllable actions on that. We're because of the changing of everything, we have really amped up our coaching of what it looks like to have conversations. So we talk a lot about compensation conversations. And we always do that from a listing side and from a buyer agent side. What do those conversations sound like? How do they flow? And we role play, and we really are pushing role playing, and we're pushing just having those conversations to get comfortable with them. And just having those conversations. In the past, the conversation is like, hey, I want to go look at a house, I want to go do this, but you're not having those compensation conversations. And I think that, to me, those are the things that you want, because those are value conversations. So when we talk about compensation, we're talking about value. And but a lot of times there's been an avoidance of those, and that avoidance has led to this fear that, well, I've never talked about that, I've never, and I was like, well, we got to just debunk this fear, because this is a great opportunity for us to have these conversations. And so that's kind of what we're focusing on. We're focused on coaching, we're focused on controllable actions. We're not really looking at the storm as much as we are just controlling what we do each and every day. And a lot of it's coaching, training, and collaborating, and just kind of encouraging one another. And I think that has really helped. And I just see, just an overall picture, I think this is a great opportunity. Like, so the way I look at it is like, man, this is like a great opportunity, because for anyone that's able to articulate value, your business will grow in this. I think that your business will grow. Those that have difficulty articulating value, that is going to be the issue, is if they cannot, or they avoid those conversations, because they're going to go to somebody else that will be a little bit more confident and more able. So there could even be a disruption of like the model of how real estate offices work and how everything. So there's a lot of disruptions that I could see in there that are going to be leading with some lead agents that are very good at those conversations, that are basically, able to get the end of that buyer representation agreement signed and moving forward. And then you may have some other agents that are working with those buyers that are actually in the market, but you're going to probably push forward the strong presenters are going to be the ones that are meeting with them. So I can see a disruption a little bit in the market that way too.
Yeah, I love you focusing on the controllables and what you have control over and can do. I'm going to come back to you in just a minute and talk about those compensation conversations, because I think that's going to be a big one, and just seeing what those look like. But Mario, over to you. Same question. What are you doing to be proactive about?
Sure. I love Jim's part about the controls there. And kind of, so I'm going to step back a little bit and say, I'm going to talk about it in two things. One is our customer, and one I'm going to talk about our agents. So in our agents, we've always focused very heavily on kind of staying in front of the curve and educating to that. So educating, training, and then I'm going to say mentoring. We take the new ones and we match them with the folks that are already tried and true in doing this business. And that kind of mentorship model, the newer agents aren't floundering trying to figure out, how do I do this? They have this sense of comfort of working with someone who is already kind of has weathered a storm or two in the past, right? So maybe it was back in 2020, 2021 during COVID. How do I get in front of people when I can't get in front of people? Or when we went to the crazy multiple offers, okay, we weathered that. Now, we're coming into the higher interest rates. Okay, great. Now we have, the NAR conversation. So every single one of these challenges, if you will, breeds those opportunities that Jim was just talking about. And we really tried to train and mentor our agents on that. Now, shifting over to the customers, what we've been really doing is focusing on those relationships. And I think every single one of the successful Homes for Heroes affiliates, whether on whatever side they're on, mortgage, real estate, whatever, they have gotten where they are by building those relationships. We hear it in Success Camp, we hear it all the time. And those relationships can only be strengthened in times like this. When there's challenges, people are going to lean in and trust those people that they've worked with, those people that they trust. That's who they're going to reach out to. So we're really working on those relationships, kind of the past customer and the sphere piece, but then also being very proactive, getting in front of our target market. Obviously with a company name like Navy to Navy Homes, our target market is the military. So we're spending our kind of time, energy, and effort to work on our sphere and our relationships there, but as well get in front of other folks that we already align with, to say, hey, we're here with you, and we can help you through whatever challenge comes ahead. So it's kind of twofold on the agents and the customer side, if I answered the question.
Yeah, definitely. Let's dive into the customer component of it. What activities does that look like doing for strengthening those relationships? Is it just in conversation, or are you actually doing more with your sphere and reaching deeper into that?
So we are. So the answer is yes on both of those. So I'll just talk about some of the activities that we're doing. And again, you heard a bunch of them at Success Camp, but what we are seeing is we've reached out to a lot of the folks that we have had past relationships with, whether it's different bases, whether it's different groups online, whether it's different city groups that get around veterans and military folks. I'm just talking very specifically in the military piece right now. And we are just reaching out to them to let them know, hey, we can help. We're still here to help. And people know us as that entity to help, not take advantage of, not trying to sell or buy a home or rent a home. We are here to help. And if they have any questions with regards to real estate, we'll answer that. But then we also just say, hey, how can we come alongside you and help? There are lots of groups that are saying, hey, thanks so much. We actually did have questions X, Y, Z. So it's interesting. I'm going to kind of give you an example. We have a couple of the local bases here that have asked us that we haven't, through COVID and everything, those relationships have kind of spread out. And those people are asking us now to come back in and kind of make people aware of what does the landscape look like right now and how can buyers and sellers successfully navigate that. So we're really grabbing hold of those opportunities as much as possible. But then we're also getting out into, we're having, whether it be customer appreciation events, that type of thing, giveaways. We've got a big event coming up in June where, the military spouses will come. So we're being very intentional on some of the things that we are doing, but we're also kind of grappling or grasping back at those connections that may have withered a little bit and really trying to strengthen those up again. And they are providing fruit.
Love that. Jim, circling back to your conversations, one of my favorite books, Crucial Conversations and Whatnot. That's not for this conversation though. What are your conversations, or how are you coaching your agents to handle compensation conversations that they've never maybe thought about before?
Yeah, I mean, well, we're, when it comes to, if you're a listing agent, if you're going in regards to what you're speaking about at a listing presentation to a seller, the way that you're actually talking. So to navigate the potential settlement and all of those things, those conversations would have changed, that how you're talking to a seller and how you're reinforcing value for a buyer representation, and what does that look like from a listing agent basically supporting and reinforcing the value of another agent's compensation. And I think that that is going to be something that you got to have those conversations on what is the importance and value, because we're getting a lot of questions on, well, why, I've seen this. Well, why would I offer, a buyer compensation or concession, or however the terminology you want to use. So you have to be able to have those conversations on why this is actually part of the marketing strategy for selling your home. This could be actually make you money. So it's not costing you money. It's actually going to benefit you. So, and I think that when we look at everything, we look at it as you can look at it as a scarcity, that it's going to be a loss to me versus it's going to be an actual gain. So we talk a lot about sellers' estimated net sheets and how to navigate, what they're actually walking away with at the end of a sale, and why this could be beneficial for the nature of the market when there's low supply, high demand. You want to have a bigger pool of potential buyers that actually are going to drive the price up. So those conversations on the listing side of it, reinforcing value, I think is a huge thing for us, because we're going to be on the other side of that as a buyer, as a buyer agent, and you want to make sure that you're articulating that value. But I want it to be, I'm articulating that same value to a seller as I am to as a buyer, and I think that is very big. The other piece that I think is very important, and we may touch on this later, but it's going to be critical for our lender partners, realtor and lender partners. The lender partner is going to have so much more power in the reinforcement of the value of their realtor partner. That is a huge component. So if you have a lender partner, a lender that doesn't know you, that is not part, of the, let's say, Homes for Heroes, or not, you're not guaranteed that they're going to reinforce that value back to you. And I think that you got to really make sure that you're establishing your team, and your team isn't just you and your office, it's who you're working with that's going to establish that value. And I believe that the lender partners are going to be, their voice is going to be very critical for the success of a buyer's agent in going forward. So I would say that's another conversation that you should be having about compensation, but you're having it with a lender partner and saying, look, we're going to have to, what is your script? How are you doing this? Because we want to make sure we're working together as a team, and you really need a partner that's going to be reinforcing the value of a buyer's agent for that buyer.
I love that you just touched on that, because just because we're having these conversations with our agents or our fellow coworkers that we have too, I love that partnership component of it, and educating them as well so that they can eloquently share your value proposition and reinforce that too. So incredibly important. All right, we're talking comp, we're talking NAR, we're talking all these things. How is it? I'm not practicing real estate anymore, right? I'm still licensed, but I want to know how it is on the street for you guys right now with consumers. How are they reacting to these conversations that you're having? Are there objections that you're hearing frequently that you're having to overcome or work through or coach and train your agents on beyond that compensation one that Jim just talked about? Mario, you want to speak to that first?
Sure. And I think the biggest part is sifting through what we'll call the fake news, right? And getting to what is reality right now. I still have to remind people, this is a proposed settlement. It is not finalized yet. So when we start talking a lot of the what ifs, they are still what ifs. But if I drove it back to Jim's piece there and tied into what were the conversations we're having with consumers, this isn't new for us or our agents. On the real estate piece, especially as a Homes for Heroes piece, we have always had these conversations about the compensation, because we've said, hey, this is what you typically offer as compensation. Here's how it is split up. And here's the portion that I'm giving back to you out of our commission to say thank you for your service to our nation and to our local community. So we've always had that conversation up front. And now I may be hearing, again, I don't want to go down the whole what ifs, but now I hear, oh, well, maybe I don't have to buy a buyer's agent. And I'll say, well, not necessarily. I mean, that may be a truth. I said, but let me just put it this way. Historically, the seller has always compensated this little piece here. And very simply, we say, why would you change that if it incentivizes the other thing? It's always been part of your expense, if you will. Jim made reference to the seller net sheet. We lay it out there to them at front as if they were paying the entire thing before. And then we just have the conversation with them. And then we talk to them about what it may or may not look like if there's not compensation for the other side. And what's interesting is people have said, oh yeah, okay, so that makes sense. I guess we always have done those type of things. Absolutely. And the sellers who want to sell their home, it's a very easy conversation. The people who are a little tighter economically, depending upon when they bought the home, especially those that bought the home more recently, it may be a little bit more difficult conversation, but that's always kind of where the Homes for Heroes affiliate that's willing to give back. They already know that you're coming from a position of truth and cooperation to try and get this across the finish line. And honestly, we're having very easy conversations on the listing side as far as preparing our sellers to offer compensation. So really, that's been a lot easier than I would have anticipated.
That's awesome to hear. Jim, same experience, similar, different?
Yeah, no, I think on the listing side of it, I think that's yeah, there really hasn't been any issues. I mean, it's explaining it, but then also looking just from a practical side. Now, right now, we could still pull up because it hasn't changed. So you can still pull up part of our market analysis isn't just what the other homes are selling for. It's also what they are what they were offering as buyer broker compensation. So you got to look at the full picture of like what are the homes selling? And now that's part of the conversation is like, well, was there concessions? Was there, and I'm not sure how we're going to end up doing it in the future, but at some point, I think that compensation is going to be called concession, and it's going to be some sort of a concession. But that was always a field in our MLS that we would still see seller concessions. So I think that part of the conversation with sellers are going to be, articulating that part of the comparable properties that are selling is compensation. Like that's part of what's selling. But you got to start talking about that more. I think in the past we only talked about the list price and the sales price, and we didn't talk about the variables that actually got that price, which is competition. If it's going 105% over the list price, well, how did they get 105% over the list price? Well, there was 10 other offers. Well, why would and then like what was the circumstances that created that? What were they offering? One of the questions, what were they offering as a buyer broker compensation? And that is part of it. So I think that's a variable that we have to not just overlook. I think it's something that we need to bring out and highlight, because that's definitely, the conditions that brought that price. On the buyer side, I think that we've always we've always wanted to have buyer meetings. We like to educate. This is not a change in our business model. It's more of an emphasis now, because there has been some agents that they would want to do the buyer meeting at a house, or they would want to do it a little bit more on the fly. This is more intentional, and it is definitely we have changed our process. It's more of an interview. And I think that from a buyer's agent standpoint, you got to think of it as like a listing. You got to think of it as like, what do I do when I'm in competition? When I go out to a listing appointment, I'm bringing a presentation. I'm bringing, they're going to know more about me, and I'm really looking at it from a competitive side. I think a lot of buyer's agents don't look at it as competitive. They just do whatever it takes to get the product for that particular client. And I think that's going to shift. And this is where I think that those that look at it you look at most markets, the listing agents dominate a lot of the markets because they hold the inventory. Well, why is that? They have good presentations, and in their presentations, they're able to have the seller sign saying, "I want you to represent me." Well, that model is going to be more pushed to the buyer agent side now, and it's going to be presentations. It's going to be how you can articulate value, very similar to the listing. So our preparation for a buyer meeting or meeting a buyer should be the same as what we're doing for a seller now. So we should be like, okay, what are we doing? What's our packet look like? What's my resume look like? What's all of those things? Because now I'm looking at it like they have a choice, and I want them to hire me. And if you're good and you're really good at articulating that, I foresee commissions going up for those that are really great. Like, I don't foresee commissions going down. I see it going up, because just like on the listing side, you're not a discount broker. You're actually, now you're articulating that, and I think that you may be more than someone else. And I think that like that could be definitely like, why would you want to settle for just whatever's offered for everybody? Like you may be worth more than that. And I think that from a listing agent side, we all understand that somebody can list it for a different, but from a buyer agent standpoint, I think hasn't been the nature. It's been, well, whatever's offered, like I'm just going to take, and I'll work for whatever's offered. And I think now there's going to be a conversation about that and some competition, which I think competition is great. So I think it's going to actually win out. I think that you'll see really good buyer agents emerge from this, and like the cream will rise. And I think that they're gonna absorb a lot of the market. And I think that's gonna be what I anticipate, at least.
I love that. Mario, anything to add?
Yeah, if I can just inject that, because he dropped a couple of golden nuggets in there that I want to say, and this is something that we on our listing presentations, we do exactly what Jim is talking about. One of the data fields we're talking about are the numbers of the concessions and the price per the percentage of the original listing price. We talk about those deltas in there very specifically. So owners don't just think, hey, I'm listing my price for X amount of dollars, that's what I'm putting in my bank account. We have a very realistic conversation, and we tell them what others have been done. I mean, before this whole conversation, you couldn't talk about what the average commission was, that type of thing. And what's interesting is now you can say, you may have heard in the news that 6% is, you can say that because you're quoting the news. You're not talking about an average or violating some sort of thing. You're quoting in the news, especially if they bring it up to you. So it makes it a pretty simple conversation to then go from that piece, whether, and you're not violating an antitrust or anything, you're addressing something that is there in the news. But again, those figures that are out there at our disposal are also very valuable in that.
I love that. I'm sure we'll get questions about this, so I'm just going to dive into the whole value prop component of it because I think we're going to be inundated with value prop, value prop, value prop in our industry for the next year, year and a half, as we work through this. What does that sound like for you guys when you're having these conversations with sellers and even with buyers as well? How are you stating your value proposition for them?
Well, this could be, sorry to jump in this. This could be an hour-long or 3-hour-long class that are, being taught around right now. I put value in a lot more than just, what we're doing in the real estate space. Again, I bring it back to a relationship, and oftentimes it starts with a story. As I'm listening to what the buyer is saying or listening to what the seller is saying, I can relate it to a story of someone similar and maybe challenges that they walk through, and I express those in a story as to how we navigated those difficult things. They may not be exactly what's going to, we can what if a million times, but it's interesting when we put it into a story, and everybody knows the power of a story, it becomes real. And they're like, okay, this is my person for this, rather than just saying, oh yes, I'm good, I can list on 500 websites. Yes, I will do social media marketing. That sounds very canned, and it's just not very genuine. Yes, there may be things that you're doing, but how can you truly help in a situation? So we have a couple of those that have been, let's just call them humdingers along the way, and we can talk about how we did that. And then the second piece of that is when I go back to the help, we are here already giving back to heroes. We're in this relationship with buyers and sellers for more than just a paycheck. And that's always been part of our value proposition, if you will. And to just talk about our heart and what we have done in the past, it builds that, continues to fortify that trust moving forward. So it's a little bit different aspect than the question that you're asking, but I think it's at the premise of that relationship moving forward.
Yeah, no, I love that you incorporate what you do for the heroes in your community and how you're using Homes for Heroes to differentiate yourself and stand head and shoulders above your competition. You don't tend to have much competition once you
Well,
get to
I
that
think
point.
this kind of dovetails, Abby, because I think that if now value, you should have some value proposition that you're sharing. But what I'm saying is, like, if you're meeting that person and they're from a relationship, so if, like, right now we're controlling the controllables. So when we're reaching out to our past clients and we're reaching out to people that we've served, other heroes that we've served, we're reaching out, and I'm meeting with someone that is from them. It's a warm, that relationship, that connection is already there. And I'm sitting down with that person and going over my value. That's different than like somebody that's totally cold, disconnected, that I'm just meeting for the first time. And I think that where the pipeline of stability and growth will be in business, and who will weather the storm is are they getting the 80% that are going to be more likely to sign with you because of the relationship? Like, how are you getting them to sit down with you? Because that is where the success rate is you're like, well, I'm just going to be really good with strangers. No, we know how real estate is. It's not strangers. It's people that know you. It's people that trust you. It's people that like you. It's people that have worked with someone that you've worked with. So really the pipeline is the key for success. But if you're meeting with everyone you're meeting with is they're not a referral, that's going to be a challenge for some people, because your success rate will not be as high as it will be if you're meeting with people that are coming from a warm pipeline of people that either know you, trust you, like you were at a hero location, you worked with their aunt, you worked with their sister, you worked with any of those things. So I think that when you're saying what should an agent or a lender work on right now, reaching out to your past clients, connecting with them, talking to them, and like let them be your lead sources for these meetings. But in the actual meeting, I go over my buyer representation agreement. I changed the name of it. So like, we don't call it a buyer broker. We call it a buyer representation agreement. So we changed terminology. In our state, like, we have a state form, but we can modify the state form for our individual brokerages. So there's some conversations that I have that I take the components from the state form and I put it in ours. That's a little bit less intimidating. I drill it down into one page. It's just a one-page agreement versus a 3 or 4 page agreement that looks very intimidating. I try to pull that And then some of the conversations, like when it comes to Homes for Heroes, when I talk to them, I says, you agree that I will donate a portion of my commission back to Homes for Heroes. You're agreeing to that. Like, so when I'm talking about my value, I'm talking about that. I'm also talking about, so I'm talking about compensation, but in that compensation agreement, I have them sign that they agree that I will be donating a portion of my commission back. Like they agree to that. Like, and I think that like that has been a huge thing that like they know that like, look, this might be the commission, but they're agreeing that like they understand and know that we're donating a portion of that. And then that gets into all of the other aspects of value. But like that has always been an eye-opening conversation. They're like, well, yeah, I would agree. So on our agreement, I put, this is what we are going to do. This is what I'm going to do for you. And this is what you agree to do. And like, and part of what you agree to do, you agree to allow me to donate a portion of my commission back to you in honor of your service or in honor of, so I put that in my buyer representation agreements.
Love it.
You know, Abby, if I can add onto that, that's awesome. I teach all of our newer agents to stop saying I and to say we. If they don't have any houses, they haven't had any customers before, they can say we, and they can talk about we Navy to Navy. But this is where I think Homes for Heroes is an entire different game changer and really helps you break apart that. You can say we, this group of real estate professionals and mortgage professionals that I am with. This is some of the things we have done in this industry for people just like you, and refer to the circle of giving and refer to how much has been given back and refer. So it's very easy to have this conversation of we that brings especially when, you know, like the Tom shoes, you know, we're getting another thing. When I talk about the circle of giving, I don't know that I've ever lost a listing presentation with a hero when I talk about that, because we can talk about their, you know, their service or their son or their daughter or whatever it is. We can talk about how their family is given to the community or to the nation, and then how we do the same thing. And it just naturally, again, it just builds that relationship, and it starts right there.
That's really good. I did see, Abby, someone mentioned about, because I know that some states have a state form that they have to use. And I know Indiana is a little bit different. Every state's different. I would say that you could use the form, but you can have basically, we have a Homes for Heroes disclosure through Homes for Heroes, but you can create just another form that's like a complementary to that you're talking about, that compensation. So it could be just a additional form that you're kind of getting into that when it comes to they agree that you're going to donate a portion of your commission. And I love the circle of giving, Mario. I think we talk about that, but we're actually right now in the process of changing our buyer presentation packets. We make our buyer presentation packets for everybody because we want them to have like tools. So like and then they can customize it if they want. But then we're right now putting a component of the circle of giving and kind of emphasizing that more to try to give them more confidence in that conversation.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what Mario was sharing earlier too about being a really good storyteller, right? In order to be a good storyteller, you've got to actually equip yourself with the information at hand, right? Learning about what our foundation does so that you can share that and explain it. The best way to learn is to teach. So start taking in all the information that you can and then utilize that to your advantage by sharing it with others as well. So I've got so many notes on here about lender partners, making sure that they can share your value proposition, going deeper into your sphere because they end up sharing your value as well with others. Get really good at storytelling, treat buyers like sellers and your listings, right? All that kind of stuff. What else do you guys have going on that you feel will help you through this and capitalize on the opportunity that this change and this shift could bring about in our industry?
I think just staying plugged into the education part, right? Again, it's still a proposed settlement right now if we're talking the NAR piece. But we're staying engaged in our association. We're staying engaged with our lender partners. You know, we're doing our best to keep up the education so we can speak from a position of truth and knowledge rather than hearsay. It's interesting. I mean, I'm sure you guys do too. I mean, people send me different news links all the time through social media, and I'm like, no, well, that's not exactly. I mean, again, it could be a million what ifs. People could say, what if you have, and we can discuss that, but really trying to keep folks as grounded as possible with the knowledge, with the forms, with, you know, what is changing our industry. That's also, it's just paramount. And that the education, as the education goes up, the fear goes down. It really does, because people are like, okay, I've got the tools and the equipment to move forward. I understand the value that I bring, our company brings, Homes for Heroes brings. It's a differentiator from someone else. I understand how to do a buyer's presentation or a listing presentation, that type of thing. And I love what Jim said about the lender partners there. So, and that was awesome, and having those conversations together. It's quite the opportunity.
For sure. The education component is a big key, right? Competence breeds confidence. And in order to attract people to work with you, you've got to have that confidence as well. So that's a base fundamental for sure. Jim, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, we're really focused on sharpening the communication skills. So sharpening the way that you communicate and really focus on that. So, I mean, we meet once a week. We have an internal mastermind that all we're doing is sharpening our skills on buyer presentations, buyer conversations, seller conversations. We're troubleshooting on objections. We're troubleshooting. So what we're doing is we're sharpening, and which breeds confidence. Because you're going through those scenarios. Because I think that a lot of times they just don't know how to talk about it. They don't know how to, how to go about that. So we're really trying to we're trying to sharpen and improve any sort of packets or anything that we're giving to them, like to better reinforce value and better reinforce the goals. So we're changing our systems a little bit. We're changing our processes a little bit. So we're really just trying to tweak it. I believe it's going to raise the bar for everybody, because you're gonna have to be sharper, on the buyer side, and there's going to be very competitive. And I will say that, like, on the lender side of it, right now we're brainstorming in so many different avenues that I think that you can have a really strong lender presenter and incorporate. So, like, if you have an agent or someone that's not as strong, they don't feel like they're as strong as, like, I don't really feel as comfortable. Like, I'm seeing a lot more options of having a joint meeting, because now cash to close is going to be so part of the lender conversation about compensation and money, cash needed outside, to close on a property, is going to be tied to a realtor. I mean, it's going to be tied to an agent, and, like, so there are some scenarios where, as far as the buyer representation agreement and all of that the lender can be very helpful, not just reinforcing when you're not there, but pulling them in to be part of the process and your success on getting them to actually sign a buyer representation agreement. Because, like, you could be part of that process, and it's not so much like you got to be like, I mean, if someone's a really good presenter and someone's a really good partner, like, I'm going to lean on that, and I'm going to go to the meeting and, like, let's schedule that. Let's bring in the lender for my buyer meeting. And, like, so my buyer meeting is going to have the lender there. We're going to talk about numbers, and in those numbers, as we go through what we're doing, value, they're going to see it, and the lender is going to be reinforcing value right in front of, them. And, like, and I think that, like, that is, you got to think about your process and your systems on, like, how you work with the buyer, what's the best way, and who you work, who's part of your team, who's helping you. And if that's a Zoom call, if it's in person or whatever, I think that is a main thing. So we're really just looking at the best ways to do that and have a high percentage of success, when it comes to meeting the buyers. I mean, and that's generally what we're talking about right now is buyers, but the sellers too. We're sharpening everything on the sellers.
Yeah, and Abby, if I can jump in on that point, one of the conversations that we're training people to have now that they haven't had, they've had buyer consultations before, they've had, listing presentations, but it's really the conversation, especially from the real estate side, to the other realtor, right? So to the other realtor, you're having this if there is nothing offered, it doesn't mean that that's final. It just maybe that's their entering argument, just like an offer price. So you have to have those conversations, one with the listing brokerage. Is the listing brokerage willing to compensate? Is the seller willing to compensate? Is the listing agent willing to put up a portion of theirs, which also kind of ties into the brokerage? Then you have the lender partner, and Brenton's already said he'll write a check to everybody, so we just have that conversation with him. I see him down there. So, but there's a lot of conversations you can have. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. We are coming up really close on time. I do see some questions. I see, Jim, would you be willing to share your buyer packet?
Yeah, I can share the it's in process. We're changing it. So it's right now we're kind of modifying some of it, but I can show you what we had, but some of it's not what we are going to have here soon. Because we're gonna make some changes. Because generally, like the buyer meeting, initially, what we would do is we would be very buyer search driven, like driven on the buyer search, their needs, their wants, and all of that. Now that focus is kind of shifting a little bit of that. That's a component, but it's really about, are you going to work with me? Like is this going to be? So it kind of shifts a little bit to relationship, to commitment, and then the buyer search. So like our packets in the past were very search oriented, and in relationship, we had our buyer representation agreement in there, but it was less about that. Now it's like that's going to be the forefront, because they're really interviewing us. So we're really looking at that in a different way. You got to be more than just a door opener. You got to be more than just, because now like that's not going to be, they're not going to, you have to really show yourself as valuable. But I do think this is an awesome opportunity for any Homes for Heroes. I can see Homes for Heroes just growing as a market. As agents shrink, like there could be a growth in Homes for Heroes because of the opportunity. This is going to give a assistance for those when they're meeting. Now it's like, man, this is going to be, we're given these tools to really help us. And I think that this is really going to help with the buyer representation, agreements and meetings.
Yeah, for sure. Mario, I know you're heavy into military. I got to pose the question because I hear it from all of our people. The VA, right? Where's your head at with your veteran clients?
I've got to get off the call now. No, I'm just kidding.
Not to
so-
put you on the spot,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna anyways.
That's why I said we're starting those conversations and we're educating those conversations across the real estate agents, right? To say, okay, what else is there? What other meat is there on the bone that we can have here? And that's only if there's nothing offered, So with the military folks, they know that they're limited to a percentage of what they can receive back as far as concessions. But if that's not tapped out, then if there was zero commission, there can still be some that comes over in a concession point. So it's a matter of just educating these folks. And again, back with the military folks and the Homes for Heroes, they know that we're already here, that we're already different. We're already here to help them get through this situation, not to take advantage of them. We are here to help. I mean, honestly, and I don't mean to say this to the whole group, there's times that we have made next to nothing, or perhaps even paid to get a transition across because it was the right thing to do. And that relationship, again, moving forward, that's why people continue to refer us. That's why people continue to do business with us, and building off of that, we will. So again, educating our buyers, even in the VA point, yes, there may be some challenges. You've got the right partner here with us and with Homes for Heroes to work through that. Trust me, we're better positioned than half the folks out there. So that's where we start.
Love it. All right, just to round this out, overall temperature of where we stand today. Is it a storm? Was I a meteorologist here and I said maybe there's a chance that it could possibly rain potentially? What are you guys thinking about the state of the current market and where it's headed?
Well, I'll start. That's why I started with the statistics that I did. If I go back 7 years, literally the average agent sells about 3 homes a year. I don't know that that's going to change. In our market, 31% last year sold nothing. I think those agents that are continuing to work the 80%, the 20% that's working the 80%, I think the majority of those folks will survive. And I think they will thrive because they will do all the things we've been talking about in this. I don't know there's going to be a big drastic change there. Do I think the number of agents will shrink? Absolutely. Do I think some people will leave out of fear? Absolutely. If I was talking in our specific market, if I was one of those agents and 31% that sold nothing last year, I'd probably be throwing a towel in and be like, oh man, we're doomed, right? But for those folks that are doing business and have flowed along through the ebbs and flows and navigated through that, I think for the most part, they're going to be fine. And actually, if there's less competition in the market, I'm fine with that as well.
Love it. Jim, what say you, sir?
Well, I mean, I think that if you're planting the seeds and you're consistent, the storm can be your catalyst to growth. So the water, the storm, the rain, whatever you want to call it, like if we're just reactionary and but if you're consistently doing the right things, some storms just kind of clear out an opportunity. So I look at it as a great opportunity. I look at it as a way to sharpen. I foresee that the top probably 5 to 10% uh, of the people doing business in local markets, I think that you're going to see their business grow. You're gonna see them actually like grow in this. You're gonna see the top 30, lower 30%, 20% either get out of the business. You're gonna see a bigger formation of teams that are gonna be led by a head that will be the one that will be meeting with the clients and actually signing them up. You're going to see a model from a brokerage level that you may have 3 or 4 people within that's very strong, that there's some sort of a model that they're like going to be the ones doing the meetings jointly with someone that's maybe not as strong. And then they're going to be, converting that into relationship and then handing that off to the buyer's agent and listing agent. So I see a disruption of models, which I think is a great opportunity because you can partner, and you can like identify within if your team or your office or however you're going to do that. I think it's a great opportunity because those that are confident and are willing to sit down and articulate the value are going to do well because we all know that like buyers need representation, like and we know that it's in their best interest to have representation. The other variable I look at is like the negotiating at the point of contract, which that's what's going to be. It's going to be a lot of negotiating at the point of purchase agreement. That's going to be so the strength of negotiations and the value of that. So that's why I just think you're going to see a lot of like large teams growing out of 1 or 2 strong leads. And you're going to see that even growing even more because those agents that are right now, kind of in the middle of the pack that are they're going to be kind of swallowed up, I think, in some markets and into a larger team because they may not be strong they may be really available and able to do business, but in when they're competing with maybe a better presenter or someone that's a little bit better at the presentations, they may not win in that competition. So I could see them kind of assimilating into a strong team and a strong lead. But that's just but I think it's a great opportunity. So to me, I look at it as like, I think the market, people are going to have to buy, sell. There's still going to be movement. It's just a matter of where we are. So bring the rain on. We're planting seeds. So like, I'm like, we're ready for this. Like, so like, I think it's great. It's just about getting your psychology, your mindset, like really looking forward into it and say, there is opportunity in this. You got to see it as an opportunity, not as some way that's gonna hurt you. Because I really think this is gonna help some and it'll weed out others.
Yeah, I love that. I couldn't have wrapped better myself. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for being here, sharing your thoughts about what's going on, what your plans are for future growth and how you're thriving through this change opportunity that change always brings about. So I appreciate your time, you guys. Thank you so incredibly much. There's some amazing comments below in this as well. So thank you guys for your time as too. Be the bison, right? Let's go.
Right.
We got this.
Bison.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck, everybody.
All right, see you. Thanks.
You know that I feel